right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Trap House Podcast. My name's Justin Jett, and this is episode 9, so moving along. Today's guest is Jeff Hagerty. He's also a sponsor of the show, j3o.com for J3 Outdoorz. We'll be talking to him about some of the products he has available for water trapping. You can get that stuff at j3o.com, or we also sell it at Hoosier Trapper Supply. We have a new website as well. Much more user-friendly, easier to navigate. So if you haven't checked it out, you might want to hop on there and give it a go and see what you like about it. That's HoosierTrapperSupply.com. Check that out. And while we're on the topic of Hoosier Trapper Outdoorz is getting closer. August, less than a month away. August 2nd, we're going to release the first episode to Season 8, which I just released a teaser/trailer last week. It's on YouTube and Facebook, all over the place. And good feedback on that. It was a lot of fun to make that. It's a little different than what we normally do. Well, I went with the more dramatic, cinematic approach. So it was fun, and it looks really cool. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you might want to hop on YouTube and type in Hoosier Trapper Outdoorz. You'll see it, trailer for Season 8. So we got Jeff on the show. He's a good friend, awesome guy. Can't say enough about him. And we had a chance to, Charlie and I had a chance to sit with him in Virginia at the FTA National Convention a couple weeks ago, and which was a great turnout and a good time. So, and this week actually we'll be heading to Springfield, Missouri for the NTA convention. So, and we got a booth set up there, and Jeff will have one as well for his HAGz brackets. He's got a great display and setup. He can demo all his drowning locks and the way the bracket works and his spring clip, and he's got it all right there in front of you, including a cool is really funny. He's got a new it's a hook that you can hang your muskrat from, for the guys that like to skin them hanging. But it, being a taxidermist is kind of cool to see. He's got a stuffed muskrat hanging by its tail on that hook on display at the booth. So you might want to go check that out. It's pretty cool to see. Kind of funny seeing a dead muskrat mounted, but it's pretty cool. And I'll go ahead and say it. The next episode will be with Tom Miranda, so keep an eye out for that. We'll probably release that here in a couple weeks. See how things go. That will be for episode 10. And keep sending in the comments and the emails and things like that. It's been great feedback on this podcast. I'm really proud of it. Really, I know Charlie's taking a liking to it too. So we really appreciate all the feedback from everyone, and people are giving suggestions on topics and what they do like and don't like. All great constructive criticism. So really appreciate that. And not to forget, not just on the feedback, but we also had someone come here in the shop and give us a gift just because he likes the show. Shout out to James Snyder. He brought us some barbecue sauce, and I am one for the spicy stuff. He brought a ghost pepper barbecue sauce, which I tried a couple weeks ago at our 7B meeting, and it was pretty good. So thanks, James, for the gift. I think that's all I wanted to say before we hop into this conversation with Jeff. I think we'll just jump to it. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. All right. Thanks for joining in for another podcast here. We got Jeff Hagerty. The man with the plan is here. Finally. We've drug him on.
Wait, I'm supposed to have a plan?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay.
It was funny that, there's a number of podcasts out there, and Jeff's like, I'm at high demand. And you guys are just going to have to wait in line.
Yeah.
Oh, I see how this is going to go already. If you're tuning in, you may want to turn up the volume a little bit.
Yeah.
And we won't even get into your past.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, especially if there's children listening.
That's right.
Yeah, this is a family show.
To say
Right.
that it's checkered is to
I understand.
to put it lightly.
Right, we got a heavy filter on this.
Yep. So we're here in Virginia, hanging out in the parking lot, and we snuck away from the booth for a minute here just to chit chat with Jeff and kind of see what's going on in his world. He's got a couple new products. We'll get into that. But before we get started, we always like to do a little bio with our guests. So you want to tell us kind of how you got started in trapping and kind of getting involved with the business?
Yeah, most definitely. So I haven't, obviously, I haven't been trapping, nearly as long as what some of these people here at the convention are. Some of the guys doing the demos, they've been trapping for 40, 45, 50 years, some of these folks that we all look up to. But I started, I was getting out of the Marine Corps, and I moved back to my home state of Michigan, and I've always grown up in a hunting and fishing family, and so hunting was really my passion and pastime. And after I had moved back from being out of the state for a while, one thing that I noticed back in the mid-'90s was the amount of coyotes that were in our area seemed to be really exploding. And so it was right around the early 2000 time frame. I decided that I needed to get rid of all the coyotes in my area, and thought I could just run right up to the local store that had a few traps hanging on the wall, and I could pick some up and I could go take care of that problem.
I've seen that guy before.
Have you seen that guy before? Little do you know. It took me about 3 years before I got the first one, so I obviously learned by trial and error. So I started, sometime around that 2000 time frame. I started targeting coyotes first and foremost, which probably not my best decision, because it was just frustrating, trying to learn to catch, a Wiley there. But I got bit by the bug, like all of us, I believe, have at one point in time. And so I just kept at it, and I kept trapping. And then as, from coyote trapping to coon trapping to, rat trapping, you expand your water line and you start going after different things and whatnot. And so it just started evolving, right? And the more I did it, the more passionate I got about it. And it seems like the less hunting I started doing, and my falls started becoming more of a drive for the trapping part of it versus the hunting part of it. And so that's really how it started, right, is for me personally getting into trapping. So I don't have like this this 40-year history of trapping or anything like that. From an industry perspective, you could say I'm fairly on the new side of it, especially when you look around these conventions and stuff, but been at it for close to 20 years or whatever, running lines and whatnot. So, and again, just learning as I go. And, but as far as, how I actually started expanding myself and turning it into a business and so on and so forth, it was really just by circumstance. Some of the methods that I was using on my water line, they were fairly inefficient, or at least they felt inefficient. In my professional life, I guess you could say, I'm a project guy. I look for process improvement. I'm trying to do this engineering type of stuff, and so I'm always looking at trying to improve on things. Right, that's my day-to-day job. And so when I'm running the line and I'm finding efficiencies, I go home, I work in the fur shed, and I'm trying to build things, right? I'm trying to make my line more productive or more efficient. And so that, that's how the HAGz bracket was actually born, was through inefficiencies, right? And what I was after is trying to eliminate having to carry extra devices around, right?
Right.
Whether it was to stabilize a trap or to do something, right? So I was just trying to eliminate that because I wanted to reach into my pack basket, I wanted to pull out a trap, and I wanted to have my stabilizer or my stake swivel or whatever it was always attached to my trap, right? And so that was my first and foremost goal, right? Is to come up with this little piece of steel that I could put on a 3/8 inch rod, or I could take it off the 3/8 inch rod and use it for a pocket set, right?
It's always there.
Yeah,
We
I
gotta
didn't
search
want to
for it.
have to carry anything extra. No, I didn't want to dig in my pack basket, or I guess you could say when my pack basket tipped over,
You
I didn't
lose
want
it?
to lose it in the water.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. So that was 2012 time frame. I started prototyping a bunch of different things and messing around, and it took about 3.5 years before I landed on a prototype that I was happy with, and then I took that to essentially took it to market, got manufacturing pipelines in place, and got it going. The first show we did was the NTA in Hamburg. I think that was 2015, summer of 2015.
Yeah, New York. Yeah.
Yep, we did that show, and then from there, it's just kind of continued to evolve. You know, people have been really happy with it, and the first thing they ask for is, "What do you got for body grips?" So then you go in, your wheels continue to turn and start making different things for that, and so that's really how it came to be. But the most interesting part of it, at least for me, is the opportunities that it has brought. Right. So before I had the HAGz products, I would trap out of state, right? I would go down to New Mexico, or I'd go different places and trap, or up in the UP and trap, or so on and so forth. But the opportunities that it brings now is night and day. I mean, sitting here with you guys, right?
Yeah, it's not anybody can do
I mean, you generally have to pay high dollar to sit in this chair right here and do this with you folks.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, there was a crowd of people outside this vehicle right here. Right?
Everyone's taking pictures right now.
Everybody's taking pictures. I think they were selling tickets just on the other side of the building. But no, it's stuff like this, right? It's things like this. It's meeting all these people at these shows, and that's just so fascinating to me, is to talk to all these different people, trappers, you know, that you've looked up to for years and years and years. You're going and running lines with some of these guys. You know, you're going out trapping with somebody. Just to me, that's been the very the inspiring part for me, is the things that the doors that it's opened, essentially.
Which
right?
You had a very cool experience. Well, I don't know if it was a cool experience or not, but it was a very interesting experience last year trapping.
Yeah, it was cool in many aspects.
I mean, for myself, we've taken a number of out-of-state trapping trips, and that's one I got to be envious of, because that was pretty awesome.
That's a bucket list sort of trip there.
Yeah. So what Charlie's speaking of is last year I had a great opportunity to go and trap on Kodiak Island, Alaska, and when he says cool, he really means cold. There was several nights where you slept soaking wet, in 35, 36 degrees of rain, and so it was cold. But no, it was an experience of a lifetime, and one that I can honestly say I probably never would have had the opportunity to do, or even thought of doing, without having our HAGz product line. You know what I mean? That opened some of these. So that's kind of what I was speaking of. That it's been fantastic, and going up there and trapping on Kodiak Island, or I guess probably anywhere in Alaska. I haven't trapped interior Alaska at all. I would like to one of these days, but going up there and just all of the logistics around it, right?
People don't realize the logistics of something, and then you're involved with flying.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like you're driving to locations.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. So like when you go out of state, right? You spend, well, now, kind of your flight list, right? You got your checklist, things that that you got to do, how it's going to work. That, all right, we're going to go trap in New Mexico, or we're going to go trap in Arkansas, or we're going to go trap in the UP or wherever, and that I got a room booked here You know, I'm traveling from point A to point B. I got a truckload of stuff. We get there, we're going to jump in our trapping gear and we're going to go set traps. And, you know, you kind of know how everything's going to flow.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Kodiak, however,
It has its own guidelines, right?
it tells you what you're going to do and when you are going to do it, right? So that was a very eye-opening experience because we had planned for, you know, essentially a start date and end date, you know, for arrival and departure and whatnot. And I don't believe there was one part of that trip that went as planned, right? It was everything because of, you know, you're taking, I want to say 3 flights. So you got, you know, flight to Alaska, flight to Kodiak, and then a float plane down to the remote property. And so there's 3 flights. There's 3 different things that can go wrong right there, right, from a scheduling perspective. But then when you finally make it to where you're going, now you got the weather because you've got, you know, when you're in a remote location like that, you're so much more exposed, right? And it's not like you can just jump in your vehicle and go drive down the 2-track, put it in 4-wheel drive now, right? No, it's got its own plans for you. So you just adapt, you know, through those situations. And man, we had an amazing time. You know, there was points of the trip where you would call it, you know, miserable at times, but
it's all part of the story.
All part of the
that makes the reward
man.
even
all
more.
Yeah.
The build up,
just fun. So I'm hoping to go back again this year, and I'm hoping that we just kind of continue to build upon the little bit of knowledge that you gain each time, right? And so hopefully each time gets a little bit less challenging. But I gotta say, there at no point in time will I ever let my guard down again. Yeah, you know, no way.
Yeah. So you were pretty much weathered in, or even. I mean, you only were able to trap a couple days, right?
Yeah, we were only able to trap a couple days. See, what we didn't understand is how treacherous the area that we were going to was to land a plane.
Okay.
Right? And so essentially the wind had to be, I mean, just for an example, wind has to be less than 10 knots and it has to be directly out of the west. And the waves have to be at a certain height. So now you're talking about tide timing and stuff like that, right? So you start playing, and those things just start stacking up. All those variables start stacking up. So what we didn't know was that, right? So the person I went with, the only time that they had ever been there before, they had gone by boat, right? And so boat, it's less critical, some of these things. The wind and the tides and stuff like that is a little bit less critical. So we didn't understand that from a fly-in perspective, the added challenges, right? And the problem is we couldn't just, all right, well, we can't get a plane in there, so let's jump on a boat. It doesn't work like that on Kodiak Island, right? There's multiple week lead time, you know what I mean, to get that stuff scheduled and to get down there. So you're kind of at mercy, right? And so we didn't know this, or at least I didn't know this. And when we get there, the float plane pilot says, come back tomorrow because you're not getting there today, right? Everything's, you know, it's too much storm surge and everything else. So you just, and when you're there, you're on a limited schedule, right? So every day that goes by, you're just getting antsier and antsier. But anyway, so when we were finally able to get there, and I had a little satellite communicator that I had purchased, and so we were able to get weather forecasts and stuff like that on it. But, you know, looking at the weather forecast is like, knowing what we know now.
You aren't going tomorrow either.
It looks like we're going to, you know, it looks like we can probably get out of here tomorrow, but if we don't get out of here tomorrow, we don't know when we're going to get out of here, right? And so, so we end up cutting the time at the location short, just in order to get out of there, as what we found out that
better safe than sorry.
That's exactly it. Better safe than sorry. And the pilot had told, and this pilot had been flying there, I want to say since 1973 or 76 or something like that. So he knew what he was talking about. And he said that, you know, there was a hunt camp in the area, and they were on numerous occasions stranded out there for over 30 days at a time just because you couldn't get a plane on there
Oh my
to
gosh.
get them out.
Yeah.
So here we are looking at this this weather forecast, and knowing what our constraints were with timing and everything else, and we're going, man, we got to either get out of here tomorrow or we could be here for a couple days or a couple weeks or whatever. So we end up pulling the ripcord, had the float plane come get us the next day, got out of there, and just by chance, I don't know if you recall, back last fall, Alaska had that huge earthquake. I think it was like a 7.1 earthquake last fall.
Mm-hmm.
We had left Anchorage, Alaska at 10 p.m. to fly back to Minnesota. At 8 a.m., they had that earthquake.
Oh, really?
So in hindsight, right, we should have still been at this location on the island at that time. In hindsight, knowing what we know now from, what these experienced pilots and stuff tell you about, getting in and getting out of those areas, we would have been there for a few extra days. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Put it that way.
least.
Now, granted, I don't ever feel like it was life-threatening or anything like that, so it's not some drawn-out drama, but it's just, it changes your mindset, right? It
Right.
totally changes everything you think about, because, again, I was thinking, like, when I go out of state, and we're going to go from point A to point B, and we're going to get this thing done. No, you're going with the flow.
Yeah.
And but that part of it was awesome. It was fun. It was exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kept you on edge.
Yeah.
What's tomorrow going to do, right?
Right.
So it was fun.
So what about like the animals in this area?
what
Let's
did
get
you
into
catch or
that.
potentially could catch or.
So Kodiak Island, and I know very little about it, right? But from what I do know from being there and from the studying I have done, obviously very little from somebody that's been there a bunch or somebody that lives there. But Kodiak Island is so unique that it's got a lot of fox on the island, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of red fox, cross fox, silver fox. That's, from a trapper's perspective, that is the top predator in the canine world, right?
Okay.
There is
Okay.
no coyote, there is no wolf. It's fox. Fox is the top dog, right? Your next predators, obviously, you get into bear and stuff like that, but from a trapper's perspective, man, you're setting for fox. This is fun, right?
Yeah.
We like to catch coyotes and stuff like that, but going strictly after fox is what we were after from a canine perspective. And then there's also a lot of otter. A lot of otter on the island, a lot of beaver on the island. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances of the getting planes in and out, we couldn't get our second plane in there, which had which really had all of our water equipment for our 330s and 280s and all of that sort of stuff. So we couldn't get any of our water line going, but it's there now. So hopefully, if we make it back there this fall, we get a good go at the otter and the beaver and stuff. But definitely a game-rich environment, and stepping on that island as a trapper that's coming out of the Midwest and seeing the amount of sign, the runs that the crossovers from the otter that are just. They're dug down into the earth, 8 inches, 10 inches, just from centuries, is what it looks like that these otters have been going over these crossovers and stuff. It make any trapper kind of drool,
Yeah,
right?
you're like,
jaw
man,
just
if I
kinda
had them
drops.
traps.
Yeah, it was just an amazing experience, and I am truly thankful for being able to get the opportunity to go, and just awesome. I mean, I can't say enough about it.
So when you were there, did you have a way to get around, or y'all walking all of it? Or
we had ATVs.
Okay. Okay.
We had ATVs. We did have some ATV issues. So that again, more challenges.
Sure.
Obviously, again, there it's a saltwater. You're surrounded by saltwater, so the air's full of salt, right? So now you got corrosion on stuff, and it's just. Again, everything is more difficult,
Yeah.
right? Everything is more difficult. You're not just trailering in, you
Yep.
know, a side-by-side or a four-wheeler or whatever that, you know, you just lubed all up and got all ready to go. You know, you're dealing with stuff that, you know, someone had to get it there, you know, many months ago generally, right, just from a logistics perspective, and or several years ago, whatever the case is. And that stuff just eats at it, you know, so you got those challenges as well. A lot of challenges. But if anybody could ever get the opportunity to do it, don't turn it down.
Yeah.
Don't turn it down. The fox that we caught, and Charlie, you guys have seen one of the fox that we harvested, as I sent you one for to do some taxidermy work on.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah, I figured you would.
Yeah.
I figured you would. But just gorgeous, unbelievable.
It doesn't. If you think of a red fox in the Midwest versus this classification of a red fox there as well, it's like a completely different animal.
Yeah.
And they're Indiana's got a relatively small fox, but this thing was like 3 times the size of our foxes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know what they weighed per se. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that was a big critter.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and completely different fur, and I mean,
It's
Definitely,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
definitely
Unbelievable.
furred out.
Yeah, and so I actually told I told somebody last night that I would bring one of the pelts to the NTA. So if anybody's going to the NTA, I'll bring one there.
Okay.
Come by, take a look at it, man. These things are I mean, they're jaw dropping. You know, the size. So you know, we didn't have any scales or anything, so we didn't weigh them.
Right.
Right. But to give you an idea, skinned out some fox. I had 3 fox pelts, green. They weren't fleshed, just green pelts, in a bag. Had them froze. Had to weigh them in at the airport. They were 22 or 24 pounds for 3 pelts.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
3
crazy.
green pelts. Think about that. I mean, that is a different beast.
Yeah.
You know, that's a different beast of a fox. I mean, just, again, I can't say enough good things about it. It was so cool.
And I mean,
Such a neat
that's a
experience.
long, tough winter for that.
Yeah.
So they had to be
Yeah.
really putting it on, putting the calories
Yeah.
on, fat.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fat on those things like a coon.
Yeah, absolutely, if not more.
Yeah.
If not more.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is so I was asking, you know, a buddy that I went with, and he has trapped there, you know, several times before. You know, it's like, what is their diet? What are they eating? You know what I mean? And what it appears is, you know, they're eating a lot of the fish, the stuff that's washed up right onto the beaches. You know, whether it's fish or some form of turtle or you know, whatever it is that's getting washed up, whale blubber, you know, who knows, but they're definitely eating a ton of protein, right? And then the salmon runs, you know, that are coming up into those rivers, you know, that I'm sure they're feasting on, you know, early fall and whatnot, it's just packing it on them.
Yeah.
I gotta believe it's nothing but that fish protein that's packing it on them, you know.
Well, you know, Kodiak's known for the giant bears.
Oh.
Giant. So, you know,
Yeah,
that probably
yeah.
just goes hand in hand. And
Yeah,
it's just in his diet,
yeah.
that coastal bear,
Yep,
coastal
yep.
diet, like you said, that rich fish protein.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Did you see any signs of bear?
We've
or-
seen a lot of sign of bear. We were, and I'm thankful that we didn't run into a bear. So I didn't experience, you know, coming into contact with a bear, which I'm thankful for. Because the thing is, and we were prepared for it, right? So I mean, it's not like we were there unarmed or anything like that, but we weren't silly about it,
Right.
But the thing is like there, again, everything's always wet, right? Because it's always raining there on Kodiak. At some point in time in the day, it's raining, right? So everything's wet, and so obviously that masks any crunching or anything like that, right? So everything's quiet, except for the wind. So now you got this loud wind, right, that's coming off the ocean. So at no point in time could you essentially alert a bear without surprising it,
Sure.
right? Because your footsteps are quiet, the wind is loud, right? And so the concern
startle
is
one
you
would
don't
be-
want to startle a bear,
Right.
So you do everything with your head kind of on a swivel a little bit, and you just don't be silly about it. But I am glad that I didn't come into contact with a bear, see a bear, but definitely a lot of sign of bear. And so they're in the area. There's no doubt. They're all over. They're all over the island. But you know, I would like to see some of those big Kodiak bears. Just not
Not up
sneaking
close
on
and
'em.
personal.
Not why I'm coming up over this little knoll to set a trap.
Yeah.
So definitely a good thing. And that's the other thing. Everything from a trapper's perspective, you're carrying around lures and baits and you know, stuff that's got scent to it. Well, that attracts things, right? So.
Is it Sitka deer that they have on
Yes,
the Kodiak? Did
yes,
you see
the
any of those?
blacktail. We did see some off, up on the hillside. But yeah, so there's definitely again just a game-rich environment. The whole experience was awesome. Sea otters, can't trap them, but they would, if you had an opportunity and you could, it would be awesome. Huge sea otters. But no, just man, I can't say enough good things about it.
And it's funny to hear you say that it's such a game-rich environment because in a way you wouldn't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it's so rugged.
Yeah, and the food source, I guess I wouldn't have thought that it would have been as rich as it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, but of course those bears get giant. So, because we go from us eastern, midwestern trappers here for quite a few animals per square mile or whatever, and then you go out west and trap that high desert or whatever, and it's way less animals per square mile.
Right.
They don't have the food source, and it takes a lot more area to support them.
Yeah.
So, I guess in a way you would think, well, you go to Alaska and it might be kind of sparse, but evidently it's the opposite.
Yeah,
so.
And at least there.
Yeah.
Right now I've spoke to some other guys that do trap interior Alaska and stuff like that, and there's definitely areas that are sparse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the vastness of things kind of spreads things out as well, and then the food sources and stuff like that. But Kodiak is definitely game rich.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And I gotta say, when you're trapping public ground in the western states and you're dealing with other people coming in, and I know you've had issues in the past. With non-trappers and that mentality of sabotaging trappers, whatever. You're not gonna have to deal with that up there.
I don't think so. I don't think so. At least I don't see how you could.
Yeah.
Right. The entire, even from the airport, right, in Alaska, it's a different experience. Yeah. Right. And again, this is my first time ever even going to Alaska. Right. And so the whole thing was a new experience to me. When you've got bear mounts in the airport, the outdoorsman is accepted. Right. Do that, fly into go down to New Mexico, or something like that. And do you see any mounts in those airports? Yeah, not that I've ever seen, right? And so it's just it's a different world, and when you're accepted in that world, it's a good feeling,
What's an interesting kind of a observation or whatever, or something I've noticed. I have not been to Alaska, but you talk to people that have, and you talk to people that have vacationed up there, or they take a cruise up there or whatever, and there would be typically people that may be kind of non-accepting of this kind of lifestyle here.
Yes.
But then geographically, they can wrap their head around it more that it's acceptable there.
Right.
And it's a weird perspective if
it
you
is.
think about it.
It
so,
is.
Okay, it's okay for them, but we're not so sure about you guys down here.
Right.
And it's just kind of strange to think about that.
It is. It's very strange.
And it might be just that initial, like you said, you get off at the airport and they've got mounts in the airport.
Right.
Or you get off the airplane and there's mounts in the airport. So that's strange.
I don't know how that dynamic comes about,
Yeah.
but it's definitely there, right?
Yeah.
I don't get it. Probably one of the only other areas that I've personally ever trapped that's kind of had that same acceptance has been in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting closer to that type of wilderness, more remote area.
Yeah,
or whatever.
And but like you go into restaurants, and they'll have the Trapper's Den or what, the traps on the walls, and they'll have plenty of mounts. Now granted, throughout Michigan and whatnot, where I'm at, there's plenty of restaurants that have game mounts and stuff like that. So that's not the big deal. But to accept the trapper, right, and the fur trade and that sort of thing, the Upper Peninsula definitely, I feel that's accepted in most areas there. I'm sure there's areas it's not, but in most areas that I've trapped up there, it's been you feel welcomed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you go down to southern Michigan, or you go to New Mexico, or you go to some of these other states. It's not necessarily the same thing.
No, it's
right.
It's different.
It's like it's like you're an alien.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. It's just different. And it's a kind of a shame.
Actually a
So I don't know.
Well, that's kind of why I'm involved with FTA. We got to get these people informed and educate.
We got to put their head on straight.
Yeah.
We got to put their head on straight.
I mean, if it's acceptable there, it should be acceptable here.
Yeah.
So what is really the difference? And if you wanted to take them back in time, they said, it's part of the lifestyle up there, or it's part of the culture, or whatever. It's like, this entire country was opened up by the fur trade.
Exactly.
Exactly. So get your head around that. Too.
Yeah. It's an uphill battle for sure. But going somewhere where it's already accepted is definitely a good experience.
So did you feel like those animals up there were easier to trap? So I've heard guys in the northern states or areas where the weather may be more severe. It's like they'll just throw down a piece of fish and you're catching critters.
Yeah.
Whereas here, Indiana, Midwest, whatever.
Yeah.
They're a little more involved to catch and a little more.
So it's an interesting question. Right. I don't think the animal or the animal behavior changes much from an Indiana canine to a Kodiak canine. Right. But what I do think changes is the pressures. Right.
Right.
So if you think about out there, or I assume any wilderness area, right, the amount of pressure that's applied to that animal is most likely nil compared to, a Midwestern state or an Eastern state or something like that, right? So they haven't been shot at because a hunting season has just been going on, or they haven't been pressured to, through trapping. They haven't seen other traps or dirt holes and smelling stuff, and they haven't been snapped at. So I think there's almost like a, they're virgin animals.
Yeah, they're not as guarded.
And so I think there's that piece of it that gives you an advantage, but I wouldn't say that their guard is down, or they're less intelligent or anything like that. I would just say that you don't already have them on some sort of alert, right. When you're chasing them.
Right.
Now, with that being said, that plus it being game rich and potentially a higher population of animals, it definitely puts the advantage in your favor as the trapper, trapping in an area like that versus an area, Indiana or Michigan or whatever.
Which is better than if you go out west, where those guys, they're 365 days a year. That stuff is under pressure.
Yes, absolutely.
Where we don't have that here.
Yes.
So, or in Indiana, I should say.
Yeah.
Or in the Midwest.
Yeah. But the thing too is not only is it pressure from the hunter and the trapper and everything like that, it's the hikers, the skiers, it's everybody that are pushing these game animals and keeping them on alert and everything like that, right?
Right.
The vehicles, and there's just so much more busyness, right? That's happening in that animal's life where it's at versus an animal in the wilderness. The difficult part to an area like that, or like Jeff Dunlap being up in where he was up near Fairbanks in Alaska, it's getting around and being able to get to those, and right, when different areas that you trap, being able to get from one area to another area, that's one of your biggest challenges, right? How many sets can I get out? How much of this can I do? Do I got to hike 3 miles in, 4 miles, whatever? Do I got to put more foot traffic?
Right.
That all plays that role. And when you're on, when us trappers are going, like most of it, there's obviously some guys that go for long periods of time, but when most of us are going on a week, 2 week, 3 week vacation, going out and doing some trapping, that time matters.
Yeah,
that time matters a
exactly,
lot.
exactly.
Right? That's going to play a big effect on the catch.
And that is one of the biggest things when we look at an area and we think this looks like a really good area, but is there going to be access to where we're going,
right,
where we want to trap?
Right.
Because if you're spending time hoofing it and hiking,
yeah,
I mean, you will never get out of the home range of just that area,
yeah,
those animals right there.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have got to be able to travel.
Yep.
Forest Service roads, 2-track ranch roads, whatever, whatever and wherever you are, you have got to have access to
Absolutely.
it. You know? So that's the reason I asked if you guys had vehicle or some way to get around on Kodiak.
Well, we had took in a Zodiac as well, an inflatable Zodiac, and we had a little outboard motor for it, and we went. It was scheduled to go at highest tide, is why we went. You know, some of the time that we did, just so we could potentially get up into some of these cuts a little bit easier. You know, from boat access and whatnot, but. They kind of bit us a little bit, you know, with the weather and getting a plane in and storm surge and all that stuff too. So, but yeah, so we did have that. We had that stuff. We were logistically planned well. Mother Nature,
right,
and
had different plans.
Had different plans. Yeah. So, but yeah, so again, man, it's a totally different experience. At least, like going anywhere for your first time is. But just the amount of planning that you have to do, and then hoping everything executes as planned.
Yeah.
Right. But so.
And Jeff, you have the perspective, or you've been going out of state on trapping trips for several years.
Yep.
You know, and which we have too. So, and we kind of look at it as. That's what we enjoy doing. That's what we like to do.
Yep.
You know, somebody was giving me grief. It's like, well, you guys are buying licenses and you're doing this and there's no way you're making any money. It's like, well, it isn't about the money,
right,
for sure. I mean, this is what we enjoy doing. This is what I'm doing in place of taking an elk hunting trip or in place of whatever. It isn't about the money. I mean, there's easier ways to make money anyway.
Absolutely.
So, and I try to make money every day of the year otherwise. So why do I have to have that perspective if I'm on a trip? You know, so.
It's about experience.
Exactly.
Right? And
adventure
fun.
and experience. And
so I've gone out of state on hunting trips.
Yeah.
I've came back with empty tags before.
Yeah.
And
nobody thinks anything. Nobody thinks anything about
that trip. Cost me a lot of money. I didn't make nothing on that trip.
Yeah.
I take my wife down to the beach. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Maybe I'm not trapping anything or hunting anything, but I didn't make anything on that trip either.
Yeah.
But I'm having fun, right? And so it's a matter of, if you enjoy what you're doing, go out, have some fun, see some different area, experience different things. There might be an area that you just fall in love with and just have to go back to every year. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It just becomes a thing that you just love to
We
do.
got a couple sweet spots like that.
Where are those
we hold
at?
close. We can't tell you that.
What do you mean you can't?
Because you will be there.
I thought that was part of my admission.
We'll be kicking you out.
It says on the ticket I purchased to get in this truck that you were going to tell me these little sweet spots.
We do have a spot. We do enjoy going to Arkansas. I mean, I got to tell you that. And off microphone, we'll tell you where it's at.
Okay. I'd like to see some GPS coordinates.
And there's the other thing, like you said, it's the experience and it's the adventure and it's the whole different animals and different geography and different whatever. And there's this thing too that you can't. And I've mentioned this before, but if you go on a family vacation, which are great, I love going on family vacations, and I enjoy it, and whatever.
Does Justin go with you all the time?
Well,
I'm kind of in the family, right?
Yeah.
Well, you are. I mean, but do you let him go?
Occasionally.
Okay.
But, anyways, but the trapping thing is like, I mean, you are. And it's hard to put into words, but you are in the situation.
Yep.
So, like, you have touched the earth right there. So, and you have taken it several more levels of being involved in that area versus just the
touristy trap or
yeah,
absolutely.
And there's something to be said for that.
Absolutely.
So
that's the part that I really like. I hate to keep talking about the Alaska thing, but it's a prime example. Like, I've talked about going to Alaska several times, right? And my folks go up to Alaska every couple of years. They'll go there for 3-4 months, chase the salmon around, Alaska, and we've talked about going up there and riding their coattails for a while and doing something like that, and that's getting into Alaska. But these other ways of doing it, getting on a cruise and doing that sort of stuff, you're going to these touristy locations, right? You're seeing it, but you're not living it. You're not feeling it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Go down to where you go in Arkansas, and get the dirt under your fingernails.
Do it enough times, you start to feel like a local.
You're feeling like a local, right? And you're doing it, and that's a cool part of it. I really enjoy that piece of it, getting beyond just it's a vacation, it's a touristy thing. I'm doing this and we're getting out, checks in the box sort of thing. No, you're there, you're embedded.
You're putting your
in it.
hands in the dirt.
It's fun. It's fun.
It's in fact, Justin, we're probably doing things that locals don't even do. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's
that's
just
true.
So,
well, because of that, you think they're laughing at you because you're not doing it the way they do.
Probably. Probably. So those dumb Hoosiers, they're not.
Yeah, look at them
they're
boys.
clueless.
Look at them boys. No, you guys. I'm envious of some of these trips that you guys go on. You guys have a tight knit crew, family. And the way, like your Hoosier Trapper Outdoors, the way that the show comes together, I've talked to several people, whether it's this convention or conventions in the past, people enjoy seeing the reality of trapping, right? They don't need to see that you went out and all that they see is you caught 40 animals and that's it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They like to see that you get plugged up with possums just like everybody else, right? And they like to see that you fall in the water just like everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People like to see that. I like to see that. That's reality, man.
It's relatable.
Yes.
So yeah. When you edit only to show 100% success,
right?
People can't relate to that, it's not truth.
It's not reality.
Authentic. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So really like the way that you guys pull the show together. I really think it's cool. I really appreciate the little part that I get to be of it, right?
Yeah.
We appreciate you as a sponsor. Yeah.
Well, I don't know why I still had to pay for this ticket here, but
well, because we need money.
Yeah. So don't we all? But no, it's just really neat, And there's several different shows out there, that do a good job like that, and they like to show the heartache just as well as the successes, and that's neat stuff. And trappers need to understand that there's challenges, man. It may take you 3 years to catch a coyote.
Yeah.
It did me.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, it's all going to click, and it's all going to come together. And those successes become more frequent.
Exactly.
But you still have the challenges.
Yeah. Exactly.
Whether it's Mother Nature saying, or, it's just getting plugged up with
Well,
possums.
if it didn't have the challenges, I don't necessarily know if I'd do it.
I mean,
it's kind of like
there's
fishing.
something to be said for that. Yeah, there's certainly
you,
something to be said
you
for
want
that.
to get over the hump and
absolutely.
succeed.
Absolutely.
I mean, we tell people all the time they're just fighting it so hard. I think they're overthinking and they're trying too hard, or they don't have a baseline, so then they're really all over the place. And we tell them, once you catch one or two, you are over the hump.
You gotta get over that hump.
I'm not saying it's going to be a whole lot easier, but it will become easier, and you will have more
clicking.
success.
Get that first click, and then the second click, and so on. But like, one thing that I think is important for people is get educated, right? There's so many opportunities now to go on, a 1 day, 2 day, 3 day sort of hands-on education, whether it's at a fur takers college, or whether it's at some of these guys put on different events that you can go to. Some of them do cost money, but the learning curve that is achieved there, and what you end up bringing back from that can be very, very eye-opening.
Right.
Especially for people like, I don't know how you first started getting your knowledge with trapping, Charlie, but I assume it was mostly through School of Hard Knocks sort of thing.
To a point, I did have an advantage when I was 15. Ran into Bob Wendt.
Okay.
And actually ran around with him for 2 or 3 years. So
Okay.
at that point, he was primarily a water trapper. He did
Okay.
catch the fox, but
Okay.
so I did have that advantage. That was a couple of years,
So that definitely took some few years off the
learning curve
there.
for sure.
Absolutely.
It certainly did.
But most of us don't have that opportunity to go out trapping with Bob Wendt or some of these other.
I got lucky. I ended up dating his daughter. I was like, Charlie showed me all his secrets he's gathered over all these years and all his knowledge. And I caught one the first trap.
And that's yeah.
I was like, dang, this is easy, you guys.
Yeah.
Instant success. Right?
Well, that's the other thing. There aren't any secrets. It's all out there.
No.
Yeah.
And even our state Department of Natural Resources through the Trapper Ed program, there's even some 2 and 3 day Trapper Eds where they go set traps, check traps, so, and those are free.
Okay.
So, and there's, as mentioned, there's some expanded classes that are 3 or 4 days or some that are a week, like the Fur Takers College, so yeah, I mean, there are, in addition to just the huge resource on YouTube, you got to sort through it.
Yeah.
But
These conventions.
Oh my
I was getting ready to say that
You
next.
know,
Just sitting in on a few demos by some of these legends here.
Yeah, go to demos. At most conventions, they're free with entry.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Or go around, poke your head in these booths, right, and talk to there's generally 100 booths set up of vendors and stuff. Talk to these guys, man. They've been there. They've done it.
Yeah.
They don't know everything because everybody is still learning.
Oh yeah.
Everybody is still learning. But that is for anybody that's either a seasoned trapper or a trapper that's just getting started. If you haven't ever gone to a convention, that is an awesome way to gain a ton of knowledge. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Go do that, but get educated.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's key to all of this.
Use a good source for the education,
right?
But go get educated, and man, it's something I wish I would have done instead of, kicking myself for 3 years trying to catch my first coyote. Right?
Yeah. And with social media and with all the ways of communication nowadays, it's not. Or just doing a Google search. There's no reason why people shouldn't be aware of these resources.
Yeah.
So it's I get that years ago maybe it was a little harder to get the information that but yeah, it's all out there. So and if you take it upon yourself to learn this trapping thing, you'll get it.
So what's up next for Who's Your Trapper Outdoors? Where are we going?
We will be in Indiana, home state. Arkansas again. We skipped a year in Arkansas, and then New Mexico.
You gonna do the semi-live stuff again, or how'd that go? I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think we'll do that.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna do that again. We've got a lot of good comments on that, and guys, and there again, it was kind of relatable because we have a lot of farmland viewers.
In fact, there's a farm that you had there in Indiana that I believe you said you were going to allow me to trap that had a few hot spots, if I'm not mistaken, on it with a little bridge there going over a little waterway.
Yeah. That's a good spot.
Seems like there was 4 corners there.
Yeah. Sure.
I think we worked something into this year's contract, didn't we?
Come on down, Jeff.
But
yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna do the circuit again.
Yeah.
Any plans in the future? Start going somewhere else?
Well, we're going to Tennessee this year.
Okay.
That's on the that's in the technically a year ago we were supposed to go in place of Arkansas, but because of the turnaround in Texas when we were on the way to New Mexico because of a blizzard, we turned around there and went to Arkansas, which really wasn't in the works.
Sure.
So that took the place of Tennessee.
It's kind of going with the flow, like we talked
about.
That's it.
Had to
you
just
got to adjust
plans. So, and then we still had our licenses for New Mexico, which we didn't really want to eat. So we went to New Mexico then in February.
Went back.
February.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
So Tennessee. A guy invited us down. It's a big deer hunting lease, and and he's got some additional properties lined up. So that's kind of where that that deal right there.
Gotcha.
So
well, that'd be fun.
yeah. So
That'd be a nice state to trap, especially now with the new the laws being changed recently, and being able to go down there and use some real traps and
exactly. I mean, that was the thing. In the past, we had had an offer in Tennessee, but at that time it was still soft catch state.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to just buy a whole.
Well, that's it.
You know,
even though the soft catch trap, a lot of people love them, so a lot of people don't like them very much. But the fact is, it works.
right?
But a guy isn't necessarily going to come as a non-resident and re-outfit his entire
Exactly.
arsenal
Right.
to go trap your state in order to do that. So
Right.
so it's really cool that they changed their laws, and I'm sure that's going to help somewhat. I mean, there's not a ton of us trappers to begin with, but
Right.
that's got to help from a non-resident income, right? Coming in there
Right.
and trapping your state a little bit and putting some seed money into those local areas.
Sure.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's from what I understand, they lowered the non-resident license fee.
Oh, excellent.
So I mean that that kind of goes backwards as to
Sure,
what most states
sure,
are trying to do. So
sure.
so yeah, we did a podcast with John Daniel.
Okay. Yep.
Possibly the upcoming NTA president.
It's a good possibility.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people pushing for it.
Yep. And he was in. Of course, he's from Tennessee, and he worked pretty hard on changing
You're
some
darn
of that
right.
stuff in
You're
Tennessee.
darn right.
So.
It was awesome to see somebody get behind some trapping laws and do the right thing, or actually something that benefits the trapper.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
As opposed to continually nipping away at some of our laws and
Yeah.
what's accessible to us and whatnot. So
Yeah.
very cool to see.
Yeah,
Very cool
and that's
to see.
another thing that we look at when we go to out of state is is it a trapper friendly state, or is it a state that just makes you just jump through hoops one after
Exactly.
the other? You know, so
Exactly.
and there are some of those out there. Where
Yes, there are.
You know, anyways,
Yeah.
it's just states that you avoid.
Yep.
You know, so,
Yep.
but
Yep. Well, it sounds like you got a plate full coming up.
we yeah.
Are you gonna be able to get my fox done while you're doing all this trapping around?
It'll probably be maybe a 3.
it'll be a few years.
It'll be done in 2 weeks.
I already told you I thawed it out and forgot to put it back in the freezer, and all the hair fell out of it.
Right.
We do try to honestly stay within a year is what is kind of our goal.
Uh-huh.
So we plan to have it for you.
I'm just messing with you.
No, that's fine. It's kind of the nature of the business for taxidermists to be relatively backed up and slow, and it's pretty much the nature of the business for the client to be continually bugging us.
Well, I just figure, with all your out-of-state plans, just out screwing around all the time, that it'd be hard to get any of that work done.
Yeah. And,
Gotta get your priorities straight,
yeah,
Charlie.
we had a guy, an old taxidermist, good taxidermist down in Indiana. Who's probably an hour from us. In fact, he's pretty much, or he is retired and has been, and he's actually sent work our way. But his deal was anybody that called to check on their mouth just added another couple months to the wait.
Every time you call, you go down a few notches. That's a pretty good way to work that business, there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I like that.
We're not going to do that, but that was his thing. So
Gotcha.
But anyways,
That's excellent.
so you have developed a couple new products.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited about them, actually. One is actually a old product that I've been using for at least 12. We were trying to figure out how long I've actually been using them, but at least 12 years, potentially 15 years. It's our tail hook. It's a really simple concept. The only reason I started using it is because I started skinning my muskrats by hanging them by the tail, right? And over the last few years, I've put some polls out, whether it was on social media or different forums or whatever, talked to people at these conventions, and it's really about 50-50 whether a muskrat trapper hangs his rat to skin it or he puts it on a table or on his knee or something like that to skin it out. So it's about 50-50. So that weighed into whether or not, do I want to make something. But I've been using this hook, again, for quite a few years now. But the reason I started using it was because when I was skinning my muskrats by hanging them by the tail, and I would generally use a rope, parachute cord, some 550 cord, whatever. Every now and then,
Slide
you'd be
out.
skinning and down it goes, right? The tail slides out of the loop that you got tightened there, and you got to pick it up and rehang it and start back, and so it's just pain in the butt. So I started using nothing more than a hook that I had sharpened on a point on one end, and you simply just pierce it into the tail. I started originally poking it into the side of the tail, and I could get, every now and then a rat would rip through the tail. And so I just kept messing with it, and you poke it in the bottom of the tail, and the point of the hook will rest up against the bone. And the way that I have the hook sharpened, the more pressure you put on the muskrat, the more that the point of the hook wants to bite towards the bone, right? So it kind of pierces into that and prevents it from slipping. So it's just a really, really fast way of processing a muskrat and keeping it from falling on the floor, basically. So I've been using that for a number of years and thought, you know what? 50% of the trappers that I've been in contact with anyways, they like to hang their rats. And so let's see. And so this is actually the first show that we've actually had it out, and there's been a very good response to it, very good response to it. And it's high quality, made stainless steel. I hand sharpen them all. So it's kind of a neat little product. The other product though is is a new product that I haven't used for for 12, 15 years, anything like that. But it's our multi-lock. And our multi-lock is a heavy-duty drowning lock that can also double as a slide lock for those guys that want to slide coyotes or fox or whatever on dry ground using chain or anything like that. So the multi-lock, I designed it to where it would work on wire, so like 14 gauge wire up to 9 gauge, as well as cable up to 1/8-inch cable. But it'll also work on your chain, so machine chain, number 2 machine chain, 1/0 twin loop chain. It'll work on fiberglass rods, both 3/8 and 1/2-inch fiberglass rods for drowning beaver. And it'll also work on rebar, both 3/8 and 1/2-inch rebar. Again, more for drowning beaver and otter and stuff along those lines. But me personally, because I've got select amount of beaver and otter in my area. So unless I'm going out of town, I'm generally using it to slide coyotes. And I'm primarily doing that early season before the ground gets too frozen. I'm using it to preserve my blind sets for coyotes. I've got some of those areas like what you're going to let me trap down there in Indiana, Charlie, where you got, kind of like the 4 points coming off those bridges. I like to blind set those areas early season because those are just, these coyotes have been stepping in those areas for decades, right? Those runs are just essentially ingrained when you got those bridge crossovers like that. They're going to continue to do the same thing year after year after year. And so I blind set those early season, and I slide my coyotes, 20 feet out of the way, preserve that spot. Now, a lot of guys will say, well, why don't you use drags? And I'd love to use drags, but I can't in some of these areas because they're just wide open they're wide open bean fields,
exactly.
And there's just nowhere they're going to hang up very well. And so I'm using those multi-locks to move coyotes out of the way and preserve those blind spots or blind sets.
So you're just basically blending and trapping on the trail.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Just your straight up blind set. I'm just not wanting to call attention to the area with a lure or anything like that.
Right.
At least early season, right? As the season goes on, those areas start to get beat up a little bit. Then I'll flip them over to something a little bit different. Maybe it's a flat set or a dirt hole set or something like that. But now I'm calling attention to it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
So you're going to end up missing maybe a few more or something along those lines where my blind setting, that's kind of like my early season set that I like to use.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm using it for that. Just a really, really heavy duty multi-lock, and we've had great response to that as well at this show. A lot of guys are pleased to see it come out. and especially for number 2 machine chain, we got a lot of guys in this area that appear to run a lot of number 2 chain for beaver, for running drowning systems. So I'm really excited to get that out to the public. In fact, I just dropped you some off at this show, so inventory is starting to get out there a little bit.
Yeah, we'll have them on the website here within a week or so, and put them in the new catalog too.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
Yeah, we're looking forward to.
Yeah, I think a lot of trappers are really going to be happy to get those in their hands.
The thing I like about the number 2 chain is you can literally take 10 foot and it'll just drop it in your hand.
Exactly.
So it's unlike cable, which is
it's got memory,
or you got to coil it up, and it's
Yeah.
still big and wire and not to mention how long.
Right.
The guys that use the rebar, I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the logistics of hauling a 10-foot piece of rebar around is just not.
To a lot of people, it's not efficient, right? It's not possible,
right?
Whatever. And so the reason I wanted to do why it came up with a multi-lock and wanted it to lock on a lot of different things is really just for that versatility of single product being able to fit multiple things. So the guys, because those same guys that are running the drowning rods, they're also got those chain setups. They've also got cable setups. So you know what I mean? They've got all these different setups for different areas that they're trapping, right? Because a lot of those guys, when they're trapping out of their truck, man, those drowning rods, you can't beat them.
Yeah.
If you're trapping out of your truck and you're right beside the ditch or whatever, man, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Right? It's fast. You can't beat the speed of it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Right? But when you guys start lugging in a little ways, right, or you're on an ATV or something like that, now you got to start thinking a little bit differently. So I wanted something that could benefit the trapper regardless of the area he's trapping, right? And so what he's got to use in order to be able to get into those areas and get those beaver, otter, or whatever out of there. So a lot of guys don't use wire anymore, at least for beaver.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys do.
Yeah.
A lot of guys do up in the North Country. A lot of guys are still using 9-gauge wire for beaver. So so we made it to where it would fit that, where it would fit the cable for the guys that have to go in light as possible and stuff like that. So so that's just the purpose of, wanting to make it as versatile as possible. And I think that's why it was many more of those sleepless nights trying to get it to work the way that we wanted it to, right. Before we'd bring it out. So.
One thing I will definitely give you, full credit or high marks or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Is just the thought process that you put into the products that you have. The brackets got just a small little hardware, but it's got so many uses and so versatile and so and it's not the same with the spring clip on the body traps. Is it's there if you need it, and if you don't need it, it's not in the way.
Right.
So I mean, it's can't say enough about those products. Just like I said, versatility, and then they're all once you have it there, it's there. It's there, and it doesn't hurt anything if you're not particularly using it. So they're awesome.
I appreciate that. That's a benefit as much as it is a curse, right? Because that's what causes those sleepless nights, right? So the thing is so my entire concept is, so for instance, this multi-lock, right? I could have made it to where it works for your rods, so both rebar and fiberglass as well as chain, right? But I've got steel there. Right? I got some extra steel. So why not put a hole in there that can accept cable and wire, right?
Right.
It doesn't cost me that much more to manufacture that hole in there, but it could get a trapper out of a jam. Right. Or it could benefit a trapper. It could give a little bit more value to the trapper, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
So my whole concept is if I can do something a little bit extra, right, to even just a little bit more benefit. It's not going to be the main reason why you may buy something or use something or whatever.
Right.
But if it helps you get out of a jam, like for instance the tail hook, right? This is this is how my mind works, right? Again, this is the curse part. So
I didn't know it worked.
Well, it doesn't all the time. But so here's this hook, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the hook, where again it's a hook, okay? But to me, I want the trapper to be able to use it easily, and on his current setup. I don't want him to have to go get a piece of rope to hang the hook. I don't want him to have to go do something to hang the hook.
Right.
So I made the hook, if you look at the loop end of the hook, it's got a gap there. So you can simply slide it over your chain gambrel that you have hanging in your shed. Or some sort of hanging system that you've already got. It's got that
awesome.
gap there, so you can just slip it over it, right?
Yeah.
And it's also, I had to make it large enough to where, because a lot of guys are using skinning machines anymore, right? I use a skinning machine.
Yeah.
So my same skinning machine, I slip this little hook on, and that's where I skin my muskrats. But I made it big enough so it would just slip over the hook on a skinning winch. You know, so just little things like that.
The attention to
right,
detail
is what causes my mind to never stop. Right, and it's those little things, the bracket, the clips, all of those little things. They've all got something little built into them, and it's just nonstop.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, it clearly shows in the product. So
I
product
so,
shows.
yeah, you've done.
I
I
appreciate it. I definitely appreciate
done
it.
an awesome job with that. So
Definitely appreciate it.
We got any concluders?
Concluders.
I think there's a concluder.
What's that?
Well, you guys have an awesome show. You're going to put me on some awesome property down there in Indiana Trap.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, what else are we working on here? Anything else in the deal? Am I still paying for this interview, or are you paying me for this interview?
No, you got to pay us.
I got to pay you,
Yeah.
and the Fox is going to be done ahead of schedule.
We haven't given a scheduled date, so yeah, we can say that.
I'll make sure I won't mess it up.
Right. But in all seriousness, I would like to thank you for the business that we have done over the last few years, and what you guys do for the trapping industry.
Well, thank
right? You do a ton of education with youth. You do a ton of education with old and young trappers alike. Your show has helped many people, right? Not only is it entertaining to watch you catch your possums, but it's seriously, the entire thing that you guys got going on has helped a number of trappers, and I know at every one of these conventions we go to and speak to, people speak very highly of you guys, and so it's great to be in a business relationship with you all.
Well, we appreciate that, and plus we consider
Very
you
much
a friend.
And I'm only saying this to try and get the price of this admission down a little bit.
Well, flattery only goes so far.
Right on. So,
Anyways,
anyway, I need to get back to the booth. I know we probably got a line of people. I see them wrapping around the building.
Yeah.
Right now, we should probably get back and
we probably should.
and tend to some people.
Well, and we'll go in there, and Jake will give us the stink eye because we've been gone.
Oh,
out
Jake's
there.
gonna be mad at you guys. Jake's gonna be mad.
Got to get back to the booth. He'll
Yeah.
probably want to go get ice cream when we get back.
So one quick concluder. We appreciate the relationship we have with you and your products, and
Yes.
so yeah, it's awesome.
And thanks
But-
for being a sponsor of the podcast alone
That's
in
right.
general.
That's right.
So,
I am, aren't I?
yeah.
How do you guys keep doing this to me?
We just
I
know a
don't
sucker
know.
when we see one.
That's me. That's me.
No, that's far from the truth. And,
No,
and,
I
and,
do,
and,
absolutely.
and no,
You got a
It's all
good.
fun.
Jeff has a good sense of humor. He knows what we're talking
yeah,
about.
we
Good friends.
We appreciate that too. So yeah,
So,
yeah.
All right.
So,
Thanks for
appreciate it.
tuning in, guys, and we'll catch you on the next time around. Thanks.